Welcome to Sunday Showers from the Source. My name is Patrice Hunt, and thank you for joining me this Sunday. My husband and I have taken our children to Disney 2 times. And the first time we drove straight through, and we only stopped like for gas or restroom breaks. We left home and got there. It was like 16 hours. I can't remember how many hours. It was in the teens of hours. That was like one of the worst road trips we've ever taken. We had a cranky toddler who wanted to continually get out of her seat and was not happy with the whole drive at all. We were like, oh, we're going to drive into the night. It'll be fine. They'll sleep most of the way. Our oldest daughter, of course, she like got in the back seat, laid out, strapped the seatbelt around her waist, and was like out like a light as soon as darkness came upon the car. Our toddler at the time was not having it. She just was like wanting to get out of her seat. She wanted to be held by mommy. If she did fall asleep, she would just stay asleep maybe 20 minutes and then wake right back up. It was just not the best experience. And with us trying to tag team drive, it made it to where my husband had to do most of the driving because I had to get in the back seat with her. So it's my great grandmother said, don't go through anything you don't learn something from, baby. So we learned from that one. So the next time we took them all to Disney, we stopped. We drove a little bit and stopped, and we got a hotel. We went to dinner, like went and sat down and ate dinner. I went and got my nails done because I had broken a nail before we left and I didn't have time to get it fixed. So my husband took me to a nail shop. I went and got my nails done. We went and had dinner. We let the kids play in the pool. They had a great time. And we woke up the next morning, ate a good breakfast, and drove on to our next spot. We got to Florida, and we stopped in somewhere in Florida, and we spent the night there. We ended up like finding some cute little spot to go to and do something. I can't remember what we did, but it's in the pictures that we took. And then we had dinner at, I think it was BJ's that was right next to our hotel. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm hoarse all of a sudden. But we stopped at like BJ's that was right next to our hotel. And then we went to bed, woke up the next day and had a great breakfast, same thing. And we drove on the way in. Now, the great thing about that is like, we didn't have that many more hours to go. So the drive in from that point was really quick. So by the time we got there, we ended up going to a park. As soon as we got there, we went to Epcot and, went on rides and like watched the show. So we just had a great time. We had a great time in Disney, turned around and came back. So those are two, in both of those situations, we were going to the same place. We were going to Disney in the same place, but the journey was different. The destination was the same, but the journey was different. I guess after this episode, we have 2 more episodes left in this first season of Sunday Showers from the Source. And so I wanted to really make sure that during these next 2 seasons, these next 3 episodes, so this episode and the subsequent 2 episodes after this, that I was really covering important things. And so because of that, I wanted to, be prayerful about what God wanted me to cover. And so, which I always am, but I just really wanted to be intentional with listening to him. And I felt like he wanted me to give more meat and potatoes in these last 2 messages. And so these 2 are not, this one is, I don't know, next week might be long, but this one is not going to be long at all. But it is just something that God has definitely placed on my heart to share. And it's not light and airy. So the title of today's episode is Final Destination. And it is what you think. It's talking about heaven. Heaven is real. And I think a lot of times we focus on the here and now. We focus on as far as our relationship with God is concerned, a lot of times we focus on what we can get out of it. We focus on the miracles, the blessings, the provisions. And when our focus really should ultimately be on heaven, because our focus should be that we live in such a way that when the time comes, we know that our final destination is heaven. And I am so guilty of being caught up in the day-to-day rigmarole of life with what needs to be done, what has to be done, what I want to be done. I get so caught up in planning and future tripping on what's to come and what I want to come and how I want things to look, that I sometimes forget that there is a goal, that there is a goal at the end, that there is something on the other side of death, and that's heaven. And the ultimate goal is to hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And I can honestly say that we don't really talk about it a lot. We don't talk about it enough. Of course, we hear it at funerals, and we, hear about, oh, they're going to a better place. That's kind of the gist of what we hear. There's no more suffering. There's no more pain. They're going to a better place. But I remember growing up, we used to sing this song, "When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be." And I remember, I feel like we talked about heaven more as our ultimate destination. And I don't know, maybe that's not the case at your church. Maybe that's not the case with what you've experienced. But I feel like we don't focus a lot on that aspect of the journey, on the destination. I feel like a lot of times when we hear the things that we hear on social media and online and at conferences and things like that, or just like those little excerpts that we get from those 1-minute sermons on social media that people put out. A lot of times, well, some people, I'm not going to say everybody, because there are some biblically sound people who are really truly preaching the death, burial, and resurrection and sharing what God has placed on their heart. And so I don't want to negate any of that. But I also will say that there are some people who their focus mainly is prosperity preaching. And also there is a light shining on, well, get this, like, look at what God, oh, you follow God and he'll bless you with this house, or you follow God and he'll get you this dream job, or you follow God and then he'll bless your business. And so we get so caught up in the hashtag blessed and hashtag goal lifestyle that I feel like I talk about every week on the podcast. But to me, the hashtag goal is to dwell in heaven with God. And so I feel like we get so caught up in that we allow our ultimate destination to kind of take the back burner, to take the back seat through it all. And I think maybe it's because we feel like maybe that we're not convinced that not going to heaven is a possibility. Or I don't know, because I was looking at this, I was listening to a podcast or reading something, and I saw that 40% of Americans believe that everyone, no matter what you've done, no matter what you believe, will ultimately be saved and accepted by God. And that's a beautiful sentiment, but that is not true. It says in his word that in John chapter 14, verse 6, it tells us that no man comes to the Father but by me. That's what Jesus said. He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the light, and no man comes to the Father but through me." And so that tells me that Jesus is the avenue, that he is the foundation from which our faith is built upon. And because of that, we have to go through him. He is what keeps us standing. He is what keeps us firm in our beliefs and in our relationship and in our abilities to eventually make it to heaven. Whenever we are going to go somewhere, well, it used to be, when we were taking our trips to Disney, we got on to the phones and we put in our destination in Google, and then Google gave us a turn-by-turn direction. It navigated us to our destination, right? With the second trip, we knew where we wanted to stop and we knew what hotels we were going to stop at. So instead of necessarily putting in Google that Disney was our destination, the second time we put in that the first hotel was our destination. And then the second hotel for the second night was our destination. And then the third day we were ultimately at Disney. So, and then also when we go to Mississippi, like to see my husband's family, his brother used to go one way to go there. But we always went another way. But we all ended up at the same spot, his parents' house. We just took different avenues. And I think that we get so used to that. We get so used to the ability to say, oh, I'm going to take this shortcut, or I'm going to go the back way, or I'm going to take the main roads, or I'm going to take the side streets, and still ending up in the same place. I think that we're so used to that in life that we kind of think that that's how it is in our faith and in our relationship with God, that we can take these side streets, we can take these other avenues, other routes, these back ways, these main roads, these back ways and these side streets and these shortcuts, and ultimately make it to God. But the thing is that Jesus is the main road. He's the only way there. He says it. I am the way, the truth, and the light. No man comes to the Father but through me. And so by him saying that, he's letting you know, he's like, hey, don't get fooled. Don't get it twisted. The only way you're getting to the Father is through a belief in me. And so we have to have and trust and have faith in that, and then believe in him and walk that out, and know that the goal is not for him to make our life better, but the goal is for us to spend a glorious eternal life with the Father in heaven. And Jesus is doing all this work. He says in John chapter 14, verses 2-4, he says, in my Father's house, there are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. You do. He's the way. Because he says in that next verse, I am the way, the truth, and the light. In verse 6, no man comes to the Father but through me. And so if Jesus went and he died on the cross for us, for the forgiveness of our sins, so that we can have an ability to the opportunity to go to heaven. And then he's in heaven right now, sitting on the right hand side of the Father, interceding on our behalf so that we can make it into heaven. We have the Holy Spirit leading and guiding us. It's like all of this work is trying to get us into heaven. It's giving us an opportunity to get to heaven. And it says in the word that the way is narrow, that everybody is not going. It says that in the Bible, that the road is narrow and the gate is narrow as well. And so a lot of times I think we feel like because, especially we live in America and Christianity is the baseline religion kind of here is the religion of the majority. But the thing is everybody picks and chooses what they want to believe and what they want to take. Oh, I'm going to take this part of Christianity, this part of Christianity, and this part of Christianity. And I might take this from Judaism, and I might take this from, from Hinduism, and I might take this from Islam. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. And I'm going to make my melting pot of what I believe, but I'm ultimately going to get to heaven. And that's not the case, because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. And so, yes, we should focus on the journey. We should do like my husband and I did with our family on that second trip to Disney. We were not so caught up in our destination that we negated the journey, but we were not so caught up in the journey that we negated the destination either. We made stops and we were intentional on our journey to Disney, to make sure that we did what we had a good time, we enjoyed it, but that we were still on the right path. No point in time did we ever veer off the road in such a way that it would make our trip longer. It's not like we were like, oh, we know we going to Disney, but we're going to take this slight detour and go to Biloxi. Even though it's 5 hours out of our way, and then come back and go to Disney. That would be crazy. And so we were intentional on our trip. We never got off of the path of our beaten path, but we did take my time. We had moments, we shared experiences, and we grew as a family. We have great memories to share because of that trip. And so in life, on this journey of life, we want to enjoy it. We want to have experiences. We want to grow. We want to flourish in our relationship with God. But we have to remember that we still have an ultimate destination, and that destination is heaven. And the goal is to get there. So we can't make detours going all out of our way, getting off the narrow path and going to the broad path with everybody else, because everybody else is saying, oh, we all gonna go to heaven. You know, it don't matter what you believe. It don't matter what you say. It don't matter what you do, because God is a forgiving God. And it says in his word, what shall we say then? Shall we go on sinning so that grace may increase? By no means. We are those who have died to sin. How can we live in it any longer? So it's saying that if we're on this journey towards the destination of heaven, we cannot continually be sinning and making these detours and doing things that everybody else is doing, thinking we're going to go to heaven. Just because God gives us grace and mercy and, and so much love that is undeserved and unconditional, that don't mean we can be like, oh, well, I'm going to go and do what I want to do, say how I want to say what I want to say, live how I want to live, play how I want to play. And then I'm going to turn it all around, when I get close to death, or, when the time is right. YOLO, you only live once, have fun while you're young and do all of this, and leave it all on the record or whatever they say. I don't know. I'm an old lady at heart. But the reason I say that is because we have to be intentional on this journey. Just like you wouldn't take a 5-hour detour if you're going to a place. If you're trying to be somewhere, you wouldn't take a 5-hour detour just to come back five more hours. You're adding 10 hours to your trip. In life, if you're on this path, on this journey to heaven, in this relationship with God, that's your destination is heaven. So when you take these detours for the world, when you take these detours of what everybody else is doing, it's taking you off the path. And we don't have as much time as we think we do. And so we have to be mindful of that. And I just wanted to take this moment out to talk about this, because I'm very passionate about it. And I know that I am guilty of just going through I can't think of the word. I'm guilty of just going through the motions and just being like, oh, this is what I have to do today. This is what I have to do this day. And for the most part, I am saying, Lord's willing, God spare my life and all of that. And I do submit my schedule to him. But a lot of times when I'm in the midst of the day or the midst of a season, and I'm so caught up with the goal, like what needs to happen during this season, I can put the fact that God, like that my ultimate goal is to serve God and to dwell with him in heaven and to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. I can forget that and not necessarily forget it, but like I said, put it in the back seat, where and let it take let it take the back seat to what my now goal is, or whatever that case may be. Like, it was something that God was asking me to do, and I didn't really want to do it. I was trying to find time. I was like, I don't have the time to do this. I have this, and this. I got 3 kids, a husband. We run a business. I do a podcast. I do this. I'm trying to get this other book written. I don't have time. And like, for that split second, that was me putting God in the back seat. Like, okay, yeah, I know this is what you want me to do, but I can't find time in doing all this other stuff that I'm doing for you, or that you want me to do, or that you've called me to do. I don't have time to do that. The goal is heaven. So since the goal is heaven, I need to do whatever it is he's asking me to do, knowing that that is going to ultimately get me to where he wants me to be. And because he has a plan for my life. And when I negate that plan, or when I put him in the back seat, that is getting me off of my narrow path and putting me on the broader path where everybody else. And so it's really easy to get sidetracked. And so I wanted to talk about this because I know that it's easy to try to put my own agenda and my own thoughts and my own desires but ahead of what God, especially in the areas where I feel like he is leading me and he is directing me to do a certain thing. I get so caught up when he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I want you to write this book. This is what it's going to be about. And I'm like, gung ho, let's go. And I want to kind of like let everything else fall by the wayside as I sit and write that book. And that's not realistic. Or, when my kids have something going on, that's another time that I can be all in, to what they have going on, what they're doing, supporting them, championing them, helping them, whatever the case may be. And then it's like, oh, well, I don't really have time to do that. I don't have time to make that stop. I don't have time to do this. And it's like, no, like I have a plan for your life and and you have to remember that your destination and your goal is to hear me say, well done. Well, in order to hear me say, well done, you have to remember what we talked about last week, where obedience is better than sacrifice. So you need to be obedient to me. So I just hope I went on a little long, but I just hope that something was said today that really blessed you. And I hope that it's a reminder that this is not the destination, that this life is not the end all be all. And we should live our lives in such a way that it is a journey to a destination, and that the journey is important, yes, but the ultimate goal is the most important. So I pray that you have enjoyed today's message and that you were blessed by it in some type of way. And I will see you next Sunday on Sunday Showers from the Source. Bye.